Hello and welcome to another episode of Toastmasters TV, filmed on location at Wellesley Public Media right here in Wellesley, Massachusetts. My name is Robert Stagno and I'll be your MC tonight. I've been a Toastmaster for a year and I'm a member of the Sunlife Toastmasters Club, which meets every Thursday at noon. Tonight, we'll be showing you parts of a typical meeting, including a prepared speech, and a few rounds of impromptu speaking games, which we call table topics. Before we dive in, a few words about Toastmasters. Toastmasters International offers the opportunity to become a better speaker and a better leader in a supportive and non-judgmental environment. As Jerry Seinfeld jokes, the typical person would rather be in the coffin than given the eulogy. The fear of public speaking is pretty common. But stepping outside your comfort zone, while it may be scary, it is very important to do so to grow. Everyone feels a little bit uncomfortable at first, but at Toastmasters, we make stepping out of your comfort zone fun. Furthermore, as they say, practice makes perfect. The challenge is it's tough to get a lot of practice in your day-to-day life with public speaking. Toastmasters provides such a vehicle. To learn more about a club near you, please visit toastmasters.org. You can attend any meeting for free as a guest, so check it out. Again, that's toastmasters.org. All right, you ready to have some fun tonight? Yes. You're going to hear from some interesting people and maybe even have a few laughs. Let's get started by practicing our impromptu speaking skills through an exercise called Table Topics. To lead us, I'd like to introduce Ying Guo, who has been a Toastmaster for 3 years, also part of the Sunlife Club. She recently got married in Hawaii, so congratulations and lucky person.
Thank you, Rob.
She will serve as our Table Topics Master this evening. So with nothing further ado, please join me in welcoming Ying.
Thank you so much, Rob, for the warm welcome. Today we are happy to bring us together for the table topics, and we have four types of topic here. Curiosity, which talk about what you are curious about. All about you. Let's learn about yourself. Future, what's your imagination of your future is? And looking back, what has happened in the past that make you what you are today? And thank you for the table topic contribution from our table topic fellow, Anna Coughlin, who have the interesting topic today. And we'll start with a looking back. The first question we have today is, what's an accomplishment that makes you proud? And we will have Michelle Moment to be our first speaker today.
Thank you, Ying. What is an accomplishment that makes me proud? I feel like I've been really lucky in my life to have a lot of good opportunities. But I'd have to go with the classic Triple Crown as a true accomplishment, because I was inspired to do it by actually Anna Kaufman. I was only a Toastmaster for maybe 6 months, and she said to me, you can get a Triple Crown, and I just started a new job, and it seemed like a lot at the time, but it really gave me a focus, and it really started me on my communication and leadership tracks for the program. So I'd have to say Triple Crown. I've been fortunate to work with a lot of Toastmasters in Wellesley, outside of Wellesley, within our Sunlife Club. My mentor, my unofficial mentor, Paul Hart, consistently helped me rehearse my speeches, which is a really important part of Toastmasters, is practicing your speeches beforehand so you're fully prepared. And it's nice for Toastmasters because while you're developing yourself along the way, it's nice to have that goal and that reward at the end, because as an adult, how many awards do you really get in life? So I'd have to say that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I actually joined the club at similar time with Michelle, and she's so far ahead of me now. That's great, like we have a target. And for the next question, let's talk about a future. What product do you believe will obsolete in 30 years? Dave, do you want to give it a try?
What product do I believe will be obsolete in 30 years? It's hard to believe this, but the product that I believe will be obsolete in 30 years is broadcast television. I think of my childhood growing up watching all those TV shows. Like one that comes to mind is Happy Days. I would always look forward to that night at 8 o'clock when it was going to be on. But now my children, the next generation, they have no concept of having to wait for that night of the week to watch TV. And now you can also stream at any time when you want to see it. And you can take your phone out and start watching TV immediately. In fact, I may do some of that right now. But the point is, I see that broadcast TV and just TV as we've experienced it will be obsolete. And we'll probably be at a point where we can pretty much watch anything anytime we want to. We could stream live sporting events. And the other thing that it'll also offer to us is instantaneous access when world events happen. I mean, sadly, what just recently occurred in Manchester is something that I think back to my own childhood probably would have taken days before it would have made its way into the news cycle. But now you see it immediately. So it's something that I've come to appreciate with the technology advances. We get more, but what will be obsolete is the concept of broadcast television. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I can't imagine how fast is technology improving. Think about 50 years ago where my parents were just born. I don't think they will ever imagine the life of today. And with that, let's talk about curiosity. When filling out paperwork and writing in an emergency contact, who do you put? Who's your person? Let's invite Vicky for this topic.
Who is my person? Well, it's John Burneff. I'm Vicki Burneff, and John Burneff is my husband. And I guess I would list him for 3 reasons. First of all, he really is my next of kin. And so I think he's the person who would want to know if there is an emergency. The second reason is that I know that he'll always do what's best and take good care of me. I do remember a time, though, he actually doesn't ever worry too much about what's going on with me, but I think he would be concerned if he did get a call. I remember when I was expecting my first child and I got stuck in April in a snowstorm, and it took me an hour and a half to get down Brookline Ave from one end to the other, and that was the one time that he was worried about me, and I was kind of shocked. It was kind of nice to know that he really did care, or maybe he was more worried about the baby. I'm not quite sure. But in any event, he would definitely be my contact. But I'm sitting here also thinking about who would I put as my backup contact, because one of the things I worry about with my husband is that his job requires a lot of phone work, and so he's on the phone all the time, and when I call him, he does not put his phone calls on hold to talk to me. I always put my phone calls on hold to talk to him, and it's very frustrating. So I think I would worry that he might not answer. And if he didn't answer for an emergency call, I would probably list one of my children as a backup contact. But definitely John Burneff would be the first person on my list.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vicky. What an interesting topic. I remember my emergency contact migrated from my mother, my roommates, and now my husband. Okay, and we haven't talked about you. If you would rename yourself, what name would you choose? Sumba?
Wow, what would I rename myself? One thing for sure is growing up as a kid, I just hated my name. So I do know that I would have, if given an opportunity, I would certainly have gone ahead and made that change. But what would the change be? Let me first start by saying, why did I hate my name? My name is the name of a goddess in India. So India is a very religious country. Although a secular country, it's a very religious country. And there goes a card. And so we have a few religious hotspots, if I may call them. So the town that I'm born in, that is a town famous for these three gods. And one of them is the name of Subhadra. That's my real name. And now every time I went to school, the kids would say, oh, and that seems to be a very traditional name. I do not have any idea why my parents chose to name me that way. The first thing the kid would, as soon as I introduced myself, would ask, oh, Subhadra, where is Jagannath? And Jagannath is the name of the brother of the god. So there were three sets of gods, remember? So I would certainly not choose Subhadra. If given a chance, my daughter, we just had a daughter and her name is Sonita, and I love that name. I probably would have picked that name if given a chance. Thank you.
What an interesting topic. And we have one more topic before we move on to our dear David's speech. And that topic would be, other than flying cars and the robots, what would we be using on a daily basis 100 years from now? And we will invite Layla for the question. Other than flying cars and the robots, what would be we using on a daily basis 100 years from today?
Okay. Hello. Okay, this is kind of scary. Well, this is my first time. I want people who don't know to know that. So, oh, there's so many. Okay. Okay, so I think one thing that I can see 100 years from now is the same concept of those Google glasses, but without any equipment that actually shows, maybe with a contact lens that it's kind of scary to think about it, because as it is, people are on their phones while driving and doing all different things, and so it's hard to imagine if we had actually a contact lens that nobody could see. But I feel like that's where technology is headed, and that's kind of the next step, is to just sit there as if we're like just sitting, but we're searching and doing all of that online. So I think in 100 years, that's where we're heading.
Thank you so much for this, for Layla, for the interesting topic. And with that, we'll give it back to Rob for an introduction.
Thank you, Yang. Very interesting questions, and thanks everyone for your responses. I learned a lot about all of you. Now let's take a break from table topics for a prepared speech. At Toastmasters, we all work through what we call projects. Each project helps us focus on a particular skill related to public speaking. It's kind of like going to the gym, different pieces of equipment help you focus on different types of muscles. Same concept. Today's prepared speech will be delivered by Dave Burton, who's working out of the Competent Communicator Manual, project number 4. This project focuses on word choice. The goals for the project are 1, choose words and grammar which communicate clearly. 2, use language that appeals to the senses. And 3, eliminate jargon. Today, Dave will share his experiences as a mentee, which aided in his progression to better serve as a mentor. I think this topic is particularly relevant for a Toastmasters meeting, since mentorship is a key component of our educational model. In fact, all new members are assigned a mentor. Dave's speech will be from 5 to 7 minutes long. Now presenting, the mentee becomes the mentor. Please welcome Dave Burton.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. That was a great introduction. And welcome, fellow Toastmasters, and ladies and gentlemen at home. I do want to share my views on mentorship, but as Rob said, I want to do it through the eyes of being a mentee. And I guess to give background and how I view it, I want to reference a common phrase nearby where I live, and that's in the greater New Bedford area. And that phrase is one being that there's a large fishing community. The statement is, if you give a man a fish, he eats for the day. But if you teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. And that's how I view mentorship. It's about teaching, so this way we all have the skill sets to continue forward. So today, as I share this with you, I'm going to do it using a communication tool, much like we progress in life. I'm first going to talk about my earlier part of my career, when I crawled into my career as a mentee. Then I'll progress into when I started to walk, getting skill sets, feeling comfortable with what I was doing, but still needing coaching and guidance as a mentee. And I'll finish with running, where I finally get to that point where I had the skill sets that I needed, but still could value having a mentor. Let me initiate with crawling. So when I first started in my professional career, I was working at AT&T, and I was part of the management training program. And in the management training program, they assign you a mentor. And this mentor, I was looking forward to meeting. I had this vision. It was going to be this person with gray hair, stately. Perhaps they had like a smoking jacket, and we would meet in this library with leather-bound books. You can imagine my dismay when I found out that we'd be meeting in the cafeteria over a cup of cold coffee. And add to it, my mentor was a reluctant mentor. He too was appointed to be in this program because it was part of his own career development. So he just didn't embrace the opportunity. So as we sat through our first mentoring session, I expected that I would get deep philosophical insights, but instead what happened was he just turned to me and said, "What questions do you have of me as your mentor?" So I started to rattle off a whole bunch of questions ranging from, how do I progress in my career? Should I go to graduate school? What clothes should I wear on a daily basis? And he diligently took notes, and then at the end of the session turned to me and handed me the notebook and said, "Here, for our next session, I want you to come back with answers to these questions, and then we'll talk further." At first, I was put back by this, but then I thought, maybe this is a communication vehicle for him. Maybe what he's going to do is take those answers and build off of it to teach me life's lessons. In our next session, I found out that was not the case. What happened was it was more like a virtual homework assignment where all he did was look at my answers and checked and checked and checked, and then said, "Okay, what further questions do you have?" By the third session, I realized we had exhausted the questions that I could put forth, and that our time together as a mentor and mentee was coming to an end. As you can imagine, as I progressed further into my career, now in that walk phase, I was not necessarily looking to get back into being a mentor and mentee relationship once more. However, the direct report boss I had at the time brought it up in a one-on-one session. He looked at me and said, "Dave, do you have a mentor?" I paused, and I guess in some ways I was receptive to the idea. So I said, "No, I don't. Do you have an idea of whom I may, pick as a mentor?" He said, "Well, that's easy. You're going to pick me." And I thought to myself, I said, this isn't probably right. I mean, while I wasn't really in depth on being a mentor, I did know for a fact that they advised you to pick somebody who wasn't your direct report boss, because that's part of developing and how you manage upwardly or deal with your leadership. So I politely said to him, I don't know if that would be the right fit. Maybe I should select someone else. He goes, nonsense. We meet on a daily basis. I'm going to be your mentor. So as you can imagine, it was not easy. It was hard for me to discern when was he my mentor and when was he my leader. And I struggled for the longest time. It was really a gray area for me. However, I can tell you with high certainty, when did it come to an end? One day he turned to me and said, Dave, I want you to make these copies. What you're going to do is take these folders, and before you make the copies, I want you to read every page. I want you to really get an understanding of what's going on. Now, mind you, this was no Warren Buffett I was dealing with. So I'm thinking, why am I making all these copies and I have to read every page? But nonetheless, I took his order and I went off to the copy machine. Now, I opened up the first page of the folder to take a look at it. And much to my shock, at the top of the page, it said layoff notices. And I thought to myself, is this how he's going to communicate to me that I'm being laid off? So I was definitely, breathless at the point. So I scanned down the page quickly, and one of the advantages of being at the top of the alphabetical order, I could clearly see I wasn't on the list. But unfortunately, a lot of colleagues and friends were. So as I went further down that list, I pushed on to the next page, and I saw there was personnel records, information I should not have access to. So I followed his direct order, and I did copy all the pages, but what I did not do is read further into the information. So when I brought him back those pages, he looked at me and said, so, did you do as I asked you to do? And I said, well, sir, thinking of our corporate guidelines, I don't think it was right that I had access to that information. So yes, I did make the copies, but I didn't read any more than 2 pages in. He goes, that's not what I told you to do. Look, if you can't follow what I'm going to do, forget it. In fact, let's not do this mentoring thing anymore. Just go back to your desk. I can't say that I was disappointed that we entered the mentoring relationship. And not long after, because of the layoffs, they did a restructuring and I no longer reported to him. So as I moved on in my career, and now I'm getting to that running phase, I felt comfortable and confident what I was doing. But I definitely didn't have a mentor. And I wasn't looking to get one based on my prior 2 experiences. However, one just appeared before me based on a moment in a meeting. What happened was I was sitting in a 3-person row. I was the end seat. There was a newly minted young executive in the middle, and then next to him was the man who would become my mentor. And this newly minted young executive was doing what you see like a lot of folks nowadays. He's working his phone, checking his emails, because obviously whatever he's doing is more important than the person who was speaking before him. And that person who was speaking before him was the leader of our organization, sharing his vision for where we were going to go as a company. And the man to be my mentor leaned over to me and said, Dave, can I borrow your notebook for a second? I handed him my notebook, and he deftly not only took the notebook, but grabbed that phone out of that young executive's hands. And in the process of doing so, he put it in his lap, and without making a scene, and I'm pretty confident we were the only 3 people in the room who knew that happened. And after the meeting, he pulled that young executive aside and said, when your leader speaks, you should listen. And not only that, you would someday want that same grace when you are a leader. He did it in such a way, like in a fatherly manner, that I knew that young executive walked away impressed. I did, and that's why I selected that man to be my mentor, and we had a long-standing relationship after. So as I share with you today, the audience, on the importance of being a mentor, I can add that to be a good mentor, you also have to be a good mentee. Because if we truly are going to learn how to fish, it's all part of working together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. I think we can all value having a great mentor. For those of us with mentors, it made us reflect on that relationship and value it even more, appreciate it even more. And for those of us without mentors, hopefully we did a little bit of thinking about how we can be a little more proactive to find one. Now let's get back to the table topics. Please help me welcome back Ying.
Thank you, Rob, and thank you, Dave, for this great discussion on mentor and mentee. And ready for a second round. For the second round, we're going to do something a little bit different. We have a bag of fortune cookies. It's kind of funny that I come from China and none of the Chinese restaurants back in China have ever offered fortune cookies that have everything. But it's kind of a tradition here in all Chinese restaurants in America. But I do like this tradition though, that after you have all the good food, instead of falling asleep, get something like inspirational words, learn a little bit of Chinese. And I think 9 of the 10 times I can associate that quote with, I think it really happening, coming out in my life. And I find that's very inspirational sometimes. So for the second round, we're going to do some fortune cookies. So I'm going to invite someone to come up, pick a fortune cookie out of this bag, and tell something, what does this quote means to you. So with that, let's first invite, who hasn't speak, Christine.
Read it. All right. Ooh, this is a good one. Everything has beauty, but not everyone sees it. That's deep for a fortune cookie. Let me think. Well, I guess when I think of beauty, it's not necessarily external beauty anyway. I'm the type of person who likes to look into the soul of the person I'm dealing with. There's always more to the story than what you see on the outside. Just today, I was coming home on the train, and I was standing, holding the loop, and I saw a very tired-looking woman come in and ask if the seat next to me was open. And it was. I wasn't sitting in it. I was about to get off at the next stop. She sat down and was like, "Oh, thank you." I'm like, "I guess you could say I saved it for you." And I just kind of smiled, and she looked up and she went, "I've just had such a rough day." And I looked at her and went, "You know, you deserve a treat. You should go home and soak in the tub or read a good book." She's like, "Yeah, that's a great idea. I was just thinking that myself." I says, "You know, it's a holiday weekend coming up. Don't work too hard. Do something nice." I could tell this woman probably gives her all at her job. I think she had one of those medical tags for the hospital that's in the city. And she probably worked on her feet for hours on end. And that one little token of me giving her that seat was something that she truly thought of as a gift and really appreciated. So I put a smile on her face and I really made her day. So I was able to see that inner beauty in this really hardworking woman who I don't even know. I don't even know her name. But I think that's the kind of beauty that I look for every day in people.
Thank you so much, Christine. Inner beauty is always the most beautiful things in the world. And who is ready for another fortune cookie? How about our timer today, Xiaocheng?
That special touches have been planned with you in mind. What does it mean? Have been planned for, okay.
Special touches have been planned with you in mind.
Wow, that's special touches have been planned. Okay.
Just anything that's
Yeah.
special in your mind?
Okay. Actually, it's my first time to speak on stage as a Toastmaster. Okay. Special touches have been planned. Okay, so I think sometimes when I have difficult, I think special touches like planned in my maybe like when you have difficulty, like somebody like come up help with you. Like as a childhood, in my childhood, like always like my parents like help me like fix some problems, and during the period of growing up, I have lots of friends like help you like dealing with some tough problems. And after I go to work, so first I recently graduated from college, so have has little to do, like, so I like ask help from my colleagues and also my experienced engineer or something. I think okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure you have a lot of challenges in life that you need to solve, but we can solve it together as wife and husband. And so, does our MC today, Rob, do you want to give it a try?
I heard if you don't eat the cookie first, it doesn't come true. Is that right? That's what I'll skip that part. Better aim at the moon than shoot into the well. Ooh. Better aim at the moon than shoot into the well. It makes me think a little bit about playing cards, and this one game, it's Hearts, I think, where you have to shoot the moon. You try to get all of a certain suit without. I'm not explaining the rules very well, but the idea is if you don't take a risk and go for something big, then you may as well not have tried at all. And I'm trying to think of a time in my life. You know, I recently started my own company about 1.5 years ago, and for many people, you would consider that a big risk, and in fact, me too. I've always had dreams of starting my own business, but I guess fear always held me back. I was afraid, well, what if it doesn't work, and how will I earn a paycheck? And you know, before I dove in, I talked to some friends who started some companies, and I think the best comment that I heard was one of my friends who started a business out in Silicon Valley, and he said, "It sounds risky at first, but once you jump in, it doesn't feel risky at all. Just because you know that you're working on solving a problem, and that eventually, if you keep doing the right things, it'll work out if you keep the faith." And so luckily I found that so far. I'm so glad I made the decision to go off on my own and do what I always wanted to do and be an entrepreneur. And we still have a long way to go, but things are off to a great start, and I'm so happy that I shot for the moon instead of the well. So thank you, gang.
Thank you, and all the best wishes for your new venture. And we know also that aside from his venture, Rob also helped started a meetup for the East Massachusetts and Rhode Island for Toastmasters. And also best wishes for that venture. And Vicky, do you want to give us a try on the fortune cookie?
Oh, it's already open. I wonder what that means. Forget those things that aren't worth remembering. Just trying to think about this for a second. Forget those things that aren't worth remembering. I think that there are probably good reasons to do that. The first reason is that it's easy to hold on to those things and have them prevent you from moving forward. If they weren't that important, or if they're truly detrimental in your life, then they aren't worth remembering. Forgetting things that aren't worth remembering, I think, can also help one move forward and let go of past pain. I think about sometimes in my life when I was a child, my mother was divorced. I was adopted by my stepfather. There were some pretty tough times along the way. And if I dwelled on those, that they are things that I think would hold me back. And it makes me think about the fact that as opposed to the statement, forget those things that aren't remembering, it's remember the things and embrace the things that really are worth remembering. And those are those bright moments in our lives that propel us forward and that give us joy and give us hope. Today I gave a talk on vision. It was vision for organizations and vision statements, but there's also something about having a personal vision. And when you have a personal vision, it propels you forward, and hopefully the things that are worth remembering are the things that are also will help you move forward for that vision. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Vicky, for this inspirational speech. And special thanks to our technical support, James, today. James, do you want to give us a try on this impromptu speech?
You're going to pay for this, Ying, calling me up here like that. Okay, facts are cheap, information is plentiful, knowledge is precious. Wow. Especially in light of all that's going on with Donald Trump now, and facts and information, plentiful and precious and all of it. Let me just read this again because I'm a little confused. I think this really states that the amount of, it's kind of relevant to what people have been talking about with the rapid flow of information now with technology, that there's so much information around, so readily available, that we really do, with all the fake news that was during the election people talked about, and hearing about the Manchester thing that comes through, all the stuff we're hearing about Donald Trump and the collusion with Russia. And I think every day all of us are bombarded with a lot of information, and we have to kind of make decisions on what we're going to pay attention to. You almost have to put up barriers so that you can kind of have a peaceful life. I never watch broadcast news because to me it's toxic. So that's a barrier I put up in my life. I don't want the latest murders brought into my living room every night. But I think that's what it speaks to, that there's a lot of information that we're bombarded with on a personal level, on a national level, on an international level, and each of us has to decide what's worthy of letting in. And this goes back to, don't forget the things that aren't worth remembering. What is worth remembering? What is worth letting in? So that's my piece, and I'm going to go back behind the camera now.
Thank you so much, James. And with that comes to the conclusion of our table topics today. And thank you everyone for every excellent speech. Now I'll give it back to you, Rob.
All right, thank you, Ying. What a creative idea. We don't always have fortune cookies at our meeting, but Liz usually brings brownies or fudge or cookies or something, so there's something there. That concludes Toastmasters TV for this evening. I would like to thank everyone who attended, and a special thanks to the people who did a lot of behind-the-scenes setting up, so Vicky Berneff and James Joyce, who you got to see both of those people on camera. And finally, thank you very much to you, the viewer. I encourage you to stop by a local club. Again, you can visit any meeting as a guest for free. Just check out toastmasters.org to find a meeting near you. Step out of your comfort zone, get some practice, and have some fun. I'm Robert Stagnow. Have a good night.